Good Saturday morning, everyone. This is Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. And I'm Greg Malinzik, and today we have a special guest host, Ken Rich, filling in for the absent Bob Wiltman. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, Greg. Good to see you. Thank you for that wonderful, unrequired introduction.
That was just right off the top.
It was
of
right
my
off the top of your
Yeah.
head. Good for you. Happy 4th of July weekend.
Well, thank you. You too.
Thank you. It's a weekend where people eat foods that they shouldn't eat and blow parts of their anatomy off playing with firecrackers.
Right.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful day. We were talking with James when we came up,
Right.
who owns the station, and I made the comment that he was out cutting the lawn, and it's such a great smell, the smell of new mown grass.
Right.
I've always liked it when I grew up in New England, and it's equally as nice here, although different, as we were discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little different.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you coming in, filling in.
I look forward to it, and so happy 4th of July to Bob as well.
I believe he will be listening, so and he may even call in.
Oh, then I have to take all the bad things I said about him off of the list of things to talk about?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
So what's new in the world of sports?
Well, before we get to some sports, I just
Oh.
wanted to mention something local going on here today from 2 to 6 p.m. There's a fundraiser at Great Chicago Fire Brewery and Tap Room, which is located at 311 West Magnolia in downtown Leesburg, for a young lady, Alyssa Cunningham, who needs surgery, and her situation currently, she can't afford it. So they're looking to raise some money, and there's raffles, live music, food, and more. If you want more information, you can call them directly at 352-474-2739, and that's Great Chicago Fire Brewery and Tap Room.
Well, everybody go down there. That's a great cause, and,
Yeah.
and I'll say a little prayer for that person.
Yeah,
to hope-
she's a Air Force veteran. She served in the Air Force from 98 to 2004, and she currently works in law enforcement, and actually apparently her injury was sustained from domestic violence.
Wow,
So,
that's
so
sad.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, everybody go see her and,
Yeah.
and spend some time at the brewery too.
Yeah.
Good.
So, getting back to sports.
Yeah. Yeah, tough transition,
Yes.
but we'll make it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Where's your head this morning when it comes to sports?
Well, I stayed up kind of late watching the Yankees beat up on Houston, which was fun.
I gotta say they're playing. I picked them early, if you remember correctly, back in April. I thought that they were going to be good. I didn't think their pitching was going to hold up, and I
Right.
still don't. But they got a few people that are certainly worth watching. I didn't see the final last night. Did Judge have another home run yesterday?
No.
Oh, okay, so he's sitting on 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. He's a very large man.
Yes, he is.
I watched them the other day, and it was funny because the umpire was someone I didn't recognize the name, but he was little.
Right.
And it just looked like a Laurel and Hardy sketch.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre.
Well, they have a, I don't even remember what position he plays. Torres. I mean, he moves around. He plays third base, second base.
Yeah,
and-
he's kind of a roamer.
Yeah, and he's like 5'6", and when they're standing next to each other, it's really funny.
And it's astounding because as big as he is, there are other guys. My Red Sox were playing the Twins this week, and Miguel Sano
Right.
is not a small man. He's
Right.
280 pounds, and he's like 6'4". But even next to him, Judge is such a...
I think Judge is 6'7".
Yeah, and he looks like he was carved out of stone.
Yeah.
It's astounding, and
Yeah.
we'll see if he can hold it up. I'm surprised that pitchers haven't tried to figure him out yet. It
Well,
just seems to me like they're still trying to throw it by.
You know what the thing about him is? He adjusts back. He's not one of those guys who just will swing the bat, and not really adjust to the pitcher.
Well, it's
So
funny.
they've been adjusting to him, and he readjusts, and because he can hit it out of the ballpark anywhere.
Oh, there's no doubt, and he can do it at any time off of any pitch,
Yeah.
predominantly. But it's weird because there seems to be a resurgence, kind of instigated, I think, by Chris Davis over the last 4 or 5 years, where 200 strikeouts and 40 home runs is acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that, quite frankly.
Neither am I.
And yet they talk about it quite regularly. as the new norm is getting a guy on your team that you don't expect to hit 220, 230, but he's going to hit 40 bombs and maybe drive in 100 runs.
Right.
And surely there's value in that. And quite frankly, with the Red Sox being without Ortiz this year, you're seeing that to a degree where they've lost a lot of power in the lineup. They've lost a lot of consistency in the lineup. They've lost that we're down 2 in the ninth with 2 guys on and can't get a bomb to win. You got to still singles, doubles, and try and scare a run across. But it's interesting. I don't like it. They were talking about Adam Dunn. And
that guy.
Yeah, I mean, and he was kind of like one of the purveyors of it. And then you can go back even further to like guys like Dave Kingman.
Yeah.
And even back then, I think even at my advanced age, I could go out and hit 200. I believe I could do that. And some of these guys are getting paid $5, $6, $7, $10 million a year to hit 200. And then they're trying to hit home runs. But it's a different concept. But it has been an interesting first half.
Well, I'll tell you, with Aaron Judge though, he's hovering around the 335 mark, so he's not an Adam Dunn batting.
He's not
210.
Nope. And I expected after seeing him with the Red Sox first series with the Yankees that he was going to be that, but he doesn't appear to be so far. I have to give him credit for that.
Well, he does strike out a fair amount.
He does.
I'll tell you an interesting little piece of trivia about him. I don't know the exact figures, and I'm sure since I've heard this, it's changed because his batting average has dropped about 10 points over the last month. But if you subtract out his strikeouts out of his batting average, if he gets the bat on the ball, he's hitting close to 500.
So there is a stat. I mean, that's balls in play.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. Well, that's an astounding figure. I hadn't heard that. It's
like 480. It may have dropped a little bit, but it's in the 400s.
It goes to the point where baseball's as cyclical as everything else, right? Yeah. And now the big challenge is that the ball is wound too tight, and that's one of the reasons that there are more home runs. There are over 1,000 home runs hit in the month of June, which has never even been broached. That number's never been looked at, but I think it's a combination of things. I mean, there are some better athletes. I think the pitching overall, with the exception of maybe the top 10 guys in both leagues, the pitching is pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to it as well. But it still speaks to the fact that, like every other major sport, all of the sports are kind of fighting for a level of mediocrity. They're all trying to have balanced teams. Yeah. When you look at the Cubs basically playing 500 ball, and they're a game and a half out of first in that division.
Yeah.
And Lester hasn't looked good, and Lackey hasn't looked good, and Arrieta, I don't even understand how Arrieta is still playing after the years he had with the Orioles.
I think he had a couple of career years. I think he's kind of coming back to where he was.
What did you think about that discussion that Montero had about his Arrieta's performance the other night with the 7 steals? Did you read about that?
No, I did not. I heard about it, but I didn't read about it.
It's pretty funny. I mean, Montero's a pretty good catcher, and he had a couple of years. I think it was with the Diamondbacks that he hit pretty well also. But right now, stealing on the pitcher, no one who doesn't understand the game realizes that you're not stealing on the catcher. You're stealing on how quickly the ball gets to the plate.
Yeah, well, here was the rub, is that Montero can't throw anybody out regardless of who's pitching.
Exactly.
So for him to criticize a pitcher is...
Contreras is averaging, I think he's right around 34%, which is pretty solid. I mean, anything over 30%, and they'll keep you around for a while. Right. And he's like 3 out of 35 or something like that, and he blames the pitcher. Right. And it's just pretty funny. But granted, Arrieta is slower than molasses to the plate, and it makes it very hard for a catcher to even get a shot. But here's what I've noticed. This is something I think is now being taught. I don't know if it's being taught in Little League or in college or the minors. It has to be where it's being introduced at first. But when I was a kid, I caught for a while, and the Cubs actually talked to me about being a catcher, but I was little. I was like 140 pounds. I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I need to be, is I need a 140-pound catcher with a 240-pound guy rounding third, heading for home when you could still block the plate. I'd be giving him a free pass.
Right.
But anyway, but we were taught to throw to the bag.
Right.
And you get, if you made a great throw, it was on the bag, you get the guy in the foot right as he slides in. I believe, honestly, now the catchers are being taught to have almost a slice. They're almost throwing like a slider away from the bag into the baseline. And if their throw it doesn't even have to be accurate. It just has to be there because they're throwing it right into the runner.
Right.
And I noticed it. I noticed it last night. I was watching the Red Sox game, and I think it was Benintendi that got thrown out stealing. But he had a good jump, and he's fast. And the delivery to the plate wasn't really fast, but the throw to the shortstop was right in his way. It wasn't to the bag. It was in his way. And all the guy had to do was just an easy sweep tag, and he was out. And I've noticed more and more you're seeing that. And I think it's something that has to be changing. I think it's changing the running game to a degree because you really need a gigantically good lead nowadays, or you shouldn't go at all because these catchers can throw the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was funny, even into college, I was pretty quick, and I seldom would have a problem stealing a bag.
Yeah.
And the older you get and the more you play, you find that catchers get better and better. But there was still none that throw the ball like these guys now. I mean, the Red Sox have two guys that have cannons. And I think that Contreras has a good arm, and Posey's got a great arm. And some of those guys, you look at them, and they control as much of the running game as the pitcher does.
Yeah.
So it was just an interesting sideline on where it was going. But I think, did you look at the what people are projecting for the All-Star teams being picked? They're picking Judge, of course, and
right.
they're Betts is going to be an alternative, and they're looking at George Springer, who's having an amazing year with the Astros, and they're a really interesting team to watch now. And
we've got a call coming in, so vamp there a bit.
Oh, good.
So
I can do that. Well, now while he's answering the phone, I can give you the visual. He's actually on the phone with headphones on his shoulders, smiling and laughing. So maybe it's someone funny. So we'll have to wait and see what happens after that. So I'm playing an announcer during this little part of our show, and now he's coming back on.
Mr. Wiltman is calling in. Are you there, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Ah, there you go.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. How you doing, Ken?
I'm very well, thank you for asking.
That's what I like to hear. I listen. By the way, I just put on the radio. I don't know if you guys covered this already, but one of the real ridiculous things happened last night. I think it was the Red Sox game. Did you see the?
Well, if it was ridiculous, it definitely was a Red Sox game.
Okay, fine.
10-minute discussion about here's a guy batting 120 that was catching for Toronto, and a pitch came inside on him, and he claimed it hit him, I guess.
No, he thought it hit him because he doesn't get on base any other way.
Well, but now have you already talked about this? I don't want to waste time on your ear.
Haven't. No, go. It's a good one.
Okay, because 10 minutes, they go in there, and you've got people scratching their heads watching the thing. How can you possibly tell on instant replay if the ball nipped the guy's shirt sleeve or whatever the guy was claiming it did? First of all, the catcher at first didn't even react to it, and then all of a sudden he was like, I think he was thinking, hey, I'm a 122 batter that can get on base there if I can. And so he talked his coach, I guess, into doing a challenge. And they showed the replay 500 times. There's just no way you could tell. If you looked at it, you'd think that probably didn't hit him. How could you possibly tell?
Not to mention the fact that it was only the second inning, so you blew out your challenge before the baseball game even started.
Right. And the announcer said, I don't know if that's a real good idea on the manager's part. He said, the bottom of the order, 2 out. He said, and you're going to, on a 1-2 pitch, you're going to waste the challenge because a 122 hitter is trying to get on base. He said, and they looked, and but there's the perfect example. It took them. It should have taken 10 seconds.
Hey, Bob, we got the break coming in right now, so I got.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I got to run now, but I'll give you guys a call in the second hour.
All right,
thanks,
thank
Bob.
you,
Take
Bob.
care.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Take care.
You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ. We're sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. We will be right back after these messages. Well, we are back with Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. And by the way, our call-in line is 352-315-1410 if you'd like to be part of the show. Give us a call.
That actually was a funny play last night, and I didn't realize you could challenge getting hit by a pitch.
Right.
I mean, it seems to me like that's arguing it's ball and strike almost.
Yeah.
But the guy, he was pretty terrible. He's a decent catcher. And he was the guy that threw out Benintendi, in fact, throwing into the runner, as I said.
Right. I was never a big fan of the batter being grazed by the pitch, where you just really can't tell. and so I don't know. That to me, I mean, to get that base, I think you should be drilled. Basically,
let's put that. Talk
You
to
gotta-
the
you gotta earn
union. Talk to the union about that.
well,
I'm
I've
guessing
seen
they're
it.
going to support
It's
that.
like it's
But-
like the thread of the baseball kind of touches a thread coming out of the jersey, and any guy gets
You're
so,
right, but what's funny about that is nowadays the uniforms are all custom tailored.
Right.
When I played, it was like, oh, you're a large? Good, here's an extra large.
Right.
And you were basically out there wearing, they were designed by Omar the tent maker. and so you could get hit if the wind blew when the ball came by, you were going to have exposure to the ball. So,
Right.
yeah, it's different now. But I agree. But it was funny, and it did take an exceptionally long time, which was incredibly surprising.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, I hate replay. I actually hate it in all sports.
well, I'm not. I mean, of course, I hate it when it always goes against you, and certain times it goes the other way. But there's no question that at some point in time they had to take advantage of the technology.
No,
And
they don't.
Well,
I mean, that's
okay.
what everybody says. That's the argument. Oh, there's the technology. Well, it's a game played by human beings, and people make mistakes, and over time things even out because they don't even get it right sometimes. And as a guy who's a videographer, I know angles. I could make an angle look like one angle looks like
Sure.
you're out by 10 miles, and another angle you're safe by 10 miles. So it's like, so what are you gonna have, like 500 cameras out there? And we joke about this, like the reason it took 10 minutes was because they were getting the NSA satellites in position.
Exactly.
So it's like, is it really that important? And I don't think it is. I think the guy makes the call, and then part of the fun of sports is when it goes against you, you complain. Hey, did you see the replay? Yeah.
Speaking of which, did you see the complaint that Farrell had the other night? That got him suspended for a game. I thought they were going to start making out. I mean, their heads turned, their faces were less than a quarter of an inch apart.
And that's part of what I loved in baseball was when these managers would just lose it.
Earl Weaver,
it's
Billy Martin.
entertainment.
Oh yeah, there's no question
This
about
isn't, this isn't like life or death stuff. This is entertainment, and I love the theatrics of, guys just losing it. And
That goes back to the money side of it,
Right.
And I don't disagree with that. I have to admit that when you win a challenge, it's always a good thing. And if you lose one and didn't know that you could have won it, then it wouldn't matter.
Right.
And I give you that. There are certain times where I could almost see it being used. I read an interesting article the other day about what baseball will look like in the year in like 25 years from now.
Right.
And they still there's still going to be an umpire.
Right.
Okay. Although balls and strikes were being calculated by a machine.
Right.
And the umpire was standing behind the pitcher because it gave them a better angle.
Right.
Which I agree with. I mean, when you
Which
see
is what I believe they do in girls softball.
they do it. They used to do it in Little League when I was a kid too, but conceptually the game hadn't changed much, and I like that. And this is what they were anticipating, but it was all technologically motivated. And interestingly enough, they anticipated it was about speed. You speed up the game,
Right.
get more people happy. But you know what? Baseball's not that. George Carlin had that great bit about going to a football game or going to a
Right.
baseball game.
Right.
In baseball, you go to the park,
Right.
and you kind of relax and watch the ball game. In football, you're in a stadium and you're fighting, and you're trying to move up and down and take people's territory and all that. And there's some real strategy in discussing it that way because to spend time with your family. My dad and my brother and I used to go to ball games all the time, and it was a day. It was a day with Dad,
Right.
And I lost him really early, so he missed it. And I heard the other night. Tim Kirchin was doing something about some charity for I think it was for Jimmy V, and he told a story about his dad, and his dad passed away too early and never got a chance to see the Red Sox win.
Right.
He was born in 1919, the year after they won it the last time, and died the year before, 2004. He died in 2003. And my dad was very much the same way. I used to tell people that the Red Sox killed both of my parents. And after 2004, they were probably resting finally. I figured that was their purgatory in case they had done something bad. But when you look at the way people are so engrossed in sports these days, and it'll lead us into any other sport that you want to talk about today, because it's all about the money now. That's
Right.
why there are replays. That's why the technology is into play, because they're paying ridiculous amount of money for these ball players. players, and you've got to have a performance. You've got to have something you can keep your hands on. You've got to make sure that it's accurate. You've got to make sure that the audience is appreciating what's taking place.
Right.
And if you don't have replay, you lose that. And there's a significant part of the generation watching and participating in these sports that don't ever remember or had no knowledge of what it used to be like in all sports. And so, basketball kind of confuses me with the need for an instant replay, and other than a clock violation, and that's fine. And they always used to try to do that if it was at the end of a quarter or whatever. But for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, any other sport can stay as clean as it can be, and technology doesn't have to be in play. And I would not have a challenge even if football went back.
Right.
But I was thinking, not to leave the topic of baseball because there's still a whole bunch of stuff there, but I read an article about the differences in football versus all the other major sports, in pay and in damage too, really, when you think about it, and how the gladiators of football can continue to play, earning so much less per capita than an average ball player in any sport. And hockey's the other one, and those guys are also physically abused more than baseball or basketball, in my opinion. But they wondered how football could maintain that level of interest and still being the most viewed sport in the world. And it's an interesting dichotomy if you think about it, because it is justified. I mean, somebody who weighs 350 pounds that can run like a deer, and he's going to stop a 240-pound running back that also runs like a deer. Those collisions don't take place in any other sport. And in fact, baseball, they've been banned, So anyway, that was just a quick sidebar. Could be a rant, maybe. We'll see about it a little bit later. I got a funny story. Today it's not. We're not just celebrating the 4th of July this weekend. Today is Bobby Bonilla Day.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Do you know why?
Yep.
And back in 2011, when he actually signed a contract with him back in 2000, the end of his deal was very back-end loaded, as they say. And starting in 2011, they pay him $1.193,248.20. So $1,193,248.20 every single year from 2011 to 2035.
Right.
So this is just a good, smart play. He worked out a deal. It's a deferred payment with an 8% annual interest rate. He's already collected a little over $8.3 million, and there are 18 more payments, which is it's remarkable. And part of that money is being deferred to another team that he played for, which is the Baltimore Orioles. So between the Orioles and the Mets, two teams that certainly don't have enough money to be able to have quality ball players at every position, he's getting paid in that particular deal for a contract he signed in 1991. So what is wrong with that picture? I can see going to my boss and saying, "Hey, look, you know what? I tell you what, I'll take $100,000 a year now, and all the commission that I earn on my sales. But I tell you what, let's spread that out. I'll take that money until 2050, and then we'll just add 8% to it every year, and then that'll be my retirement money. And you don't have to pay me now, but I need you to pay me 4 times what it's worth because I'm letting you keep the money." It's the most idiotic, and it's amazing. So he's already received $15 million of the deferred money, and over the next 18 years, he's got $27 million to go.
Well, in one regard, for him to do that is very smart, because then he doesn't fall into the category like a lot of athletes and blow all their money and then you see him in front of Walmart, will work for food.
No doubt. Speaking of what you just talk about a segue. I'm driving up here this morning, and I hadn't looked in my mirror, and all of a sudden I heard a whole bunch of motorcycles.
Right.
And I look behind me, and it's a crew of motorcycles. There's about 50 of them. And so they went by me, and it's funnier because they're more baby boomers, and a lot of them, I guess their balance is off a little bit, so they're driving 3-wheelers instead.
Right.
But still, it's cool. But all their T-shirts said, "Live to eat and ride. I live to ride and ride to eat." And I saw them like twice more on my way up. They were more getting into the line. I thought that was so funny, and they were just having a ball. And they're out there, and they still use hand signals and all the neat stuff. And I'm thinking it's a good thing, it's not the '70s, because Hell's Angels would just come in and be sitting on a corner and just pop them off like left, right, and center. But totally off topic. But both of those things I thought were funny today.
Getting back to the Bobby Bonilla thing, and I'm joking about sitting out in front of Walmart. But
No, you're not really.
well, but and I forget who the player is. He started a flag football competition, and all of the players involved in this are all guys who have blown their money in their career. So it's funny.
He was a running back.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it is either, but yeah, no, you're right,
But
and
it's
I mean,
like-
and that's sad. But they make bad investments. They have posses. Nobody's
Yeah.
supposed to have a posse.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I
some,
thought like if you had a posse, you don't pay to have friends.
that's what it is. They pay stupid money to have people walk around and look cool with them. I mean, I did that when I was in high school. I had a couple of friends that thought I was kind of neat, so we got dressed up and they drove me around. I had no ego problems when I was a kid, but we would walk into stores and they would introduce me as Kenny Cool. Okay, and anybody who knows me now knows that that's true. But unfortunately, I'm sharing it with strangers now as well. But that's the point. But this deferred money thing is just another way to pay somebody a stupid amount of money
Yeah.
to play a kid's game,
Right.
and it goes back to the need, or what they think is the need of technology.
Right.
And I don't see it going away. Unfortunately, in fact, it will continue to probably permeate the game.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, because I don't think I'm a lone voice in this, and it hasn't worked in regards of making the game shorter.
No.
The fundamental fact is that it really is the advertisements.
Oh, of course it is.
They've increased the advertisements in between innings to an absurd amount.
Well, on top of that, it's not even innings. It's now in general. I mean, watching the NBA Finals,
Right.
okay, it's only a 30-second timeout, and they go cram in 2 15-second spots,
Right.
and then they come back, and they catch you when they
Sure.
come back. It would be more interesting to stand there and watch what the coach does over his shoulder, see what kind of a play they draw.
Right.
And they don't seem to understand that as viewers, we're not interested in that many commercials.
Right.
And I know that that's one of the reasons Barbara and I will watch, we'll record television, and we watch our program only has about 37 minutes
Yeah.
worth of action in it.
Yep.
So you can eliminate the majority of the commercials. And I think I'm a pretty good consumer, but I can honestly say I've never been moved to go buy
Yeah,
something
me
because
either.
I saw it in an ad. I don't understand how people are. I understand branding.
Right.
I'm doing that now, and I'm going to throw in a quick, simple plug if you
Sure.
don't mind.
I don't mind.
Just for those of you that don't know who I am, I mean, not that you should, but here's Ken. But I work for a company called Columbia Park Car here in Leesburg. And recently, a year or so ago, they acquired the assets to a company called Tomberlin. And Tomberlin was at one point one of the fastest growing golf cart companies in the industry.
Right.
They actually moved into third place ahead of Yamaha. And they fell on some hard financial times like a lot of companies do when they're growing quickly and they're young. But anyway, a year or so ago, Columbia acquired the rights to them, and I've been working for them for a while. But recently, I took over the responsibility of the Columbia Park Car store in Leesburg.
Right.
So in the last 2 weeks, we've hired a brand new staff. They've got over...
No, you're in Lady Lake.
And Lady Lake, sorry, that's
Yeah.
right. Well, see, that's how much I know. I just find my way there with technology.
Right.
And I've hired a new staff. We've got over 100 cars up there. We've got the first time the company's ever had consumer financing. So we blew up the building, basically, repainting it and
Right.
reputting flooring down. So if anybody's in the area, go by, tell them that Kent sent you,
Well,
and they'll give you a $500
and-
discount on a car.
And I
How's that?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I met you through the Chamber of Commerce. You guys are. I'm on the board of directors. Of
The chamber,
and,
you've been marvelous. The
we-
chamber has been spectacular to us.
and we had a lot of fun. You had an open house.
Yep.
And it was a lot of fun to see the operation part in Leesburg.
Yeah, people don't even realize that we actually do manufacturing in this town.
Yeah.
I mean, and we build these cars, and it's pretty cool. We're actually going to have a re-grand opening at the
All right.
store sometime, and obviously...
I hope I get an invite.
You will certainly get an
Because
invite.
you had some great food there too.
We did have great food, and that was all part of the deal. We entice you people to
That's
get
right.
to the point where they eat so much they can't walk, they need a car.
Right.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're having some good fun over there. So sorry for the plug, but I may talk to James about doing some more of that.
Right. Right.
But it's really a neat endeavor, and I truly like supporting the local business community.
Yeah.
And Kathy over at the Chamber has been so cool for us. She actually came by the other day, and Sue. Well, no, I'm sorry, in Lady Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had. I needed a Y. The letter Y to put up on our sign, and she actually had someone came and gave it back to us. So it was pretty cool.
Nice.
And yeah, sorry about the name screw up. But anyway,
right.
We finally, now we have letters up there, and we're giving a 10% discount to all military.
Oh, nice.
And thank you for their service.
Right.
So we're doing some fun, but it's a fun deal. Thanks for letting me throw in the plug.
No problem.
So you know what I learned, strangely enough, two of the guys that I did hire there actually started rattling off all these MLB pros that grew up around here.
Yeah.
Jonathan Lucroy,
Right.
and there were a couple other guys that are actually really solid ball players.
Yeah.
Small towns, Umatilla, Eustis, Leesburg, and I didn't realize. I mean, I know that Central Florida is kind of a hotbed for talent, but I didn't realize that this part of the area was so.
Yeah, and it should be. It's something I should work on because it's not just baseball. I mean, there's several basketball players. There's a few football players. Current that are from this
Really?
area. Yeah, I don't remember their names, and actually it should be. I should work on that, and there's some former ones as well. So I mean, this has been a hotbed of.
It's amazing. I mean,
athletes.
yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I mean, obviously, in they were talking about, was it baseball? There's a bunch of guys that are from that Central Lakeland, Plant City kind of area as well. So anyhow, good lead into the break.
There you go. Thank you, sir. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, your community service radio station. We're sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And upcoming in the next part of the show, we might be talking about some NASCAR, maybe a little golf. And, of course, as always, Hour 4 will be devoted to soccer and the Tour de France. I got you cut off.
Oh, good. Just as well.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. We are back with Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ, sponsored by Bill Bryan Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. And I think we were just talking about a potpourri of sports subjects. And I am Greg Malinzuk, along with Kenny Cool Rich.
Please don't. That was probably a bad story to refer to.
You made a major faux pas.
I may have
by telling me that, because
I have guys that work for me maybe listening today, so that's not a good thing.
All right.
It's funny. Just before we went to break, you mentioned golf along with all those other fun sports you wanted to talk about after the break. But I just coincidentally was looking at some of the scoreboard. And I didn't realize that this year's U.S. Senior Open is being played up in my neck of the woods, up in Salem, Massachusetts, at Salem Country Club,
right,
which is an absolutely magnificent golf course. Mm-hmm. People don't know a lot about it, but the fairways are about as wide as a hallway, and yet some of these guys are still shooting really solid scores. And I really enjoy still watching the senior championships,
right,
and the senior event. Sorry, simply because of the names on the leaderboard. I mean, I was just looking down, and Kenny Perry, Kirk Triplett, Scott Verplank, Bernard Langer, Tom Lehman, Fred Couples. Those guys are all in the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, that not the fact that it's reminiscent of what the PGA used to look like,
right,
but those guys played the game differently, and in some cases even better than now, where
right,
the guys are overpowering the golf course. And some of that stuff, I mean, they played the U.S. Open a couple weeks ago at Erin Hills, which is a magnificent-looking golf course. I'd love to play it. But that golf course was 7,900 yards. Yeah. And some of those guys were bombing at 350, 360 off the tee because of the elevation changes and the general flora and fauna of the golf course. That's not how the game was built.
Right.
And so when I look at that, but what I noticed most importantly, and he didn't play particularly well, but he's a very, very good player. I just happened to notice that a friend of mine actually qualified and played there this year. He didn't make the cut, But Kenny Palladino, I played with him 3-4 days a week when I lived in Tampa.
Nice.
He's like you. He's a videographer.
Right. Cool.
But he didn't. He played okay on Thursday, but yesterday he kind of puked on himself, so he didn't make the cut. But I mean, they shot some pretty nice scores. Triplets leading, tied with Doug Garwood, who I'm not familiar with. Triplet broke the all-time senior record on Thursday. Shot a 62.
Wow.
And it's a par 70, so he was only 8 under, but regardless. And then he came back yesterday with a 67. Kenny Perry second at 64, 65, and Guard was third, 64, 67. So those are pretty good scores. And the golf course still plays about 6,800 yards.
Wow.
So those guys can still bomb it.
Right.
And they're fun to watch. Freddie Couples won a couple of weeks ago. John Daly actually won a few events back. I ran into him at the PGA show.
Right.
Hard to miss.
Yeah.
So I think anybody could have run into him, actually.
Did he have his posse with him?
He did not. He's a posse by himself.
Yeah.
But
he
he's
usually
very fun
He
to.
usually has 3 or 4 really attractive women in tow. You know.
Yeah, well, he may have, but they may have been further behind him now because
Okay.
there's more of them to see. But I did run into Chi-Chi, and I used to do a lot of events at his course over in Pinellas County.
Right.
When I was I did some stuff with the First Tee of Tampa. And he remembered me, which I thought was cool because I haven't seen him in probably 10 years.
Right.
But just talk about swagger. The guy just has swagger. Between him and Trevino, those guys had no golf swing, but played the game as well as anybody in the history of the game. And they were such fun to play with. I actually played with him several times and just stared at him in awe, going, I don't even know how he gets to the ball.
Right.
But anyhow, so did you watch any of the Open? It was kind of an interesting event.
I actually did not. I had some paint to watch dry.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I'm just kidding.
No,
I shouldn't say that because I do like golf.
But people who don't play, to try and get somebody...
I do play. It never translated over to watching it, though.
No, that's interesting.
Like, I grew up playing like hockey, a little bit of football, baseball, and I actually enjoy watching those sports. And I played golf for many, many years. I just really don't enjoy watching it. I mean, I'll keep abreast of what's going on and so forth, but I just really don't.
Did you watch it more when Tiger was playing?
No.
No, that's interesting.
No.
You're one of the few people that I've asked that said that.
I will say this. I probably followed it like in the newspapers and, online more than I ever had. So, I mean, I just kind of consumed it in a different way. I'm not really a huge TV watcher, and usually the matches are on the weekend
Yep.
and they're earlier, and I was always out doing something. It's like a baseball game or a hockey game. It's your day is done 7:30, 8 o'clock. You watch a game. Like that I can manage it. When it's in the daytime, I just really can't devote time to
That's
it.
why they have DVRs. It used to have VCRs.
Right.
All those things.
Well,
but I understand. I'll tell you
there-
what's interesting. I don't mean to cut you off, but what's interesting about watching quality players, quality
Right.
athletes, great players.
Right.
There's still nobody on the tour that's the go-to guy. I
Yeah.
mean, regardless of how good that Nicklaus played and how well Palmer played and how they monopolized the game for decades.
Right.
There's never been a personality, good or bad
Right.
personality, as there was when Tiger was in his game. And I mean, I didn't watch it as much. I was much more like you. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to play. I wanted to be doing something.
Right.
But he can't miss TV. I mean, that was like watching the best show on television every Saturday and Sunday, because invariably he would do something or pull off a shot or make a putt or get out of trouble. And unlike anything anyone had ever done before, and to this day, they were talking about it at the Open, he is the only reason that there's $1 million paycheck for the winner. He's the only reason that now people are watching the Golf Channel, quite frankly, because the Golf Channel was a non-entity, didn't exist back in the early days.
Right.
And I find that part of it interesting because it's not a great spectator sport to watch on television.
Right.
But to be at an event, they were 30 deep at the Open. And I would no more be interested in doing that as I would having a new different pimple on my nose every morning. There's no variable that could make me want to go stand there and be, it just doesn't make any sense. And yet for the people that are there, it's astounding. Now the people, if they're getting a good crowds at the Senior Open, that golf course isn't made for that. There's no stadium seating. There's nothing. I mean, this is a little bitty piece of land that happens to have a really tight golf course. It's in magnificent condition all the time. I don't know where they put them. And they're literally going to have to be standing on each other's shoulders because there's no way that they could do that. So it's been forced to become a TV event more so than a lot of other sports. But anyway, and just my little rant. The PGA is only fun to watch on the majors, I think. Now, I think Spieth is worth watching, and I think Fowler's worth watching. And
here's a question.
McIlroy.
Here's a question I'll ask you that we talked about, over the last few weeks is, the tour, the PGA Tour, the last 7 big events have all been won by 7 different guys.
Yep.
And so the question arises: is that good for golf or bad for golf, or what? So what do you think? Is it?
I don't think it's good for golf. I'm not sure that it's bad. That sounds very political, but I think the reason I don't think it's good is because you do have people that if they're Rory fans and Rory doesn't make the cut, they're not watching.
Right.
Okay. So if they're lovers of the game, then you might see the excitement of having a new person win each time, or someone that had maybe won once or twice on tour, whether it be here or the European PGA. So I think there's some value in that. But I just like any sport, Greg, I think the reason people follow it is because they develop a relationship with someone or some group or some team. And so on the individual sports, I think it's a little different format. So I do think it's bad for the sport, but I think it's great. I think it's great internally for golf because you do get bored seeing the same people out there every week. I mean, this week David Lingworth is leading the Quicken Loan event, and he's won, I think, once or twice. I really don't follow him particularly, but he was the winner. He did win the Web.com tour, so that's how he got his card.
Right.
But I don't know who he is, don't know his game, can't really describe it. But there are probably 20 guys who I could describe what their swing looked like or how they addressed the ball. And back 10 years ago, I watched Tiger.
Right.
So for me, seeing lots of different players excel is a good thing. Yeah. I love watching Spieth. I mean, he seems like a technological genius when it comes to the game. Right. He's got certain things figured out that others haven't quite figured out yet. That's fun. I like the fact that some of these newer guys are putting an infinite more respect on their caddy. I mean, to be a caddy was almost like, this is my drunken Uncle Bob, and he's going to be my caddy this week. Well, now they're as integral in the success of the player as the player's performance is, I think. Right. They get to see more. I can always, if I looked at your swing, I could see things that you don't notice and maybe make a suggestion to help you improve. And you could do the same with me, and yet maybe we're on the same level as players, maybe we're not. That's what the caddies are doing now.
Yeah.
No one would ever, question any of the people that were teaching Tiger. I can't imagine, his caddy coming up and going, no, that's wrong. That's not how you should do it. You need to put your elbow on your hip and carry it through and be back square at the ball. So now that's becoming more integral, I think, as part of the game.
Yeah.
So I just may have done my 5-minute rant for golf today,
okay.
but it's still fun to watch, and I usually will tape it. I'll record it, and then I'll watch maybe the back nine somewhere. And that's one of the benefits of the Golf Channel. Plug for the Golf Channel is that you can catch them at 11 o'clock at night when everything else is over if you want to follow up on the day. And they do kind of go highlight, even though they go from start to finish. They skip over the walking part, which is obviously not a highlight. So anyway, I'm going to play. I'll be playing. I hope to be playing tomorrow, in fact.
Nice.
Yeah. If it doesn't rain. I'm so sick of the rain. I'm so sick of the rain. That I could rant about.
And where would you be playing?
I believe tomorrow I'm going to make a trek back up here and play Arlington Ridge.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice track.
Yeah.
And it's usually in very nice shape. And another one of my favorite courses, my favorite new courses around here, new to me, is Mount Dora Country Club.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny. Being in the golf cart business now, I'm always cognizant of what cars they have at the golf course, because around here the need for gas is only strictly for distance. It's got nothing to do with elevation or difficult drive.
Right.
And they had gas up there when I first started, so I gave them some Tums. Anyway, they had gas carts. And recently, I went back there 2 weeks ago. The greens were outstanding, and I played well, but they had gone back to electric carts. So a plug for electric carts. Quiet, no smell.
Right.
That's my sales pitch.
There you go.
Quiet, no smell.
All right.
Sounds like a girl I dated.
All right, I'm not going to touch that
Yeah,
one.
we should have been going to commercial right then. That would have been it.
That's right.
So anyway, we left baseball rather abruptly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
today is the 81st day of the season. I mean,
Yes.
the 81st game is being played by most teams today. First of all, it's scary that the season's half over
know,
already.
I know.
I mean, we're already after the 21st of June. Fall's coming. After we have the longest day. But it's been an incredibly interesting first half, I think, and teams that you looked at, everybody who was supposed to be good is not good.
Right.
But because of the mediocrity in the rest of the leagues, there are teams that haven't found their way yet, like the Cubs, like the Indians, that will probably get it in gear here pretty quickly.
Right.
And I'm throwing behind my particularly strong picks of the Diamondbacks and the Rockies as being two teams to watch in the West. I believe they'll be very,
I
very.
think the Rockies are starting to fade.
Yeah, they did break their 7-game losing streak, though, so that's
Yeah.
good. But the Dodgers have been tough.
Yeah.
And now they've got a couple of kids that came out of nowhere. This kid, Alex Wood, I've got him on 2 fantasy teams. He has 9-0 after yesterday. But anyway, I think we're going to see separation. That's my point.
Right.
I think you're going to see the Cubs break out. I think you're going to see the Indians break out. I wish Milwaukee could hang on. I wish Minnesota could hang on. I don't think they will.
Right.
I think the East, incredibly surprising to see the Rays where they are.
Yeah.
And interestingly, why the Yankees are there. I didn't think the Yankees were going to be a powerhouse. I just thought they were going to be better than people gave them credit for.
Right.
The Red Sox are better than I thought they were going to be based on what they've done, not what I thought they had for talent, because they're not hitting for crap.
I'm going to have to go back and look it up, but because we did the thing in April, and I think I gave that division to the Red Sox.
I think you did.
With the Yankees winning the wild card.
Yep.
And I know I got some funny looks over that, but CC Sabathia really is. He's injured now, but he should be back a couple more weeks, I think.
He's just so fragile now. And when you watch him pitch, I mean, obviously he doesn't throw it like he used to,
Right.
but he looks like he's ready to break.
Right.
Every time he comes down with his follow through, I'm afraid he's
Right.
just going to collapse and there's going to be nothing but bones, because he's gotten big again.
Yeah.
And he still
I
wears.
think that was part of his success.
It may well have been. So everybody who wants to be successful, go get big.
Well, there might be something said for that. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. We're sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And we actually have 1 hour in the books.
Yikes.
And we will have another hour for you, and we're going to no doubt jump back on baseball because I got a few more things to say about that.
Yikes.
And we'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
Yeah.
We are back with Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County, and we're at hour number 2. Boy, that first hour just flew right by.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I was sleeping. Yeah, no, it has. Listen, this is fun, and if anybody's listening that wants to throw their opinion our direction or comment on something that we've said, please don't hesitate calling in.
No,
I think I know it. It's right here.
All right.
It's 352-315-1410. So want to call in, give us a shout. I hadn't done a tag for a while, so I figured I'd just throw that in. Hope you didn't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Good deal. With the voice of Lake County. So anyway, you had mentioned a variety of sports, but baseball still had some stuff in it. So where do you want to
Well,
go?
the other ones that I mentioned were for hour 4.
Good. Yeah, I'll be there for
Like
that.
Tour de France.
Yeah,
you
Tour
know,
de France.
Soccer.
It's speaking quickly off the topic, just based because you get back into baseball.
Right.
I was looking at the newspaper this morning, and although the Tour de France was predominantly in our discussions as a country
Yeah.
because of Lance Armstrong and all the doping,
Right.
but Still continuing today, as it
Oh,
turns out. Yeah.
Well, one of the assertions that that Armstrong made was that, hey, everybody was doing it.
Right.
And in order to compete, you had to do it, because if you weren't doing it, you weren't going to compete because everybody else was doing it. And they when they stripped him of that title, they didn't put anybody in there because all of the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth people had also failed.
Yeah, that's great. What a great sport.
Yeah.
Which is stupid anyway. Who wants to get on a bicycle and drive 150 miles and be exactly where you started?
Right.
I mean, I do that in life every day. Why do I need to do it on a bicycle for an extended period of time? But it's just as bad now, and they just don't talk about it as much. It used to be front page story. Now it's back page news.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to baseball.
Well,
Where are you going?
One more thing before we get back to baseball. I just wanted to mention, the Daytona 500 is coming up, and Dale Earnhardt won the pole, and I heard that yawn, but I just wanted to because he announced his retirement, I guess, and this is going to be his last shot at winning the Daytona 500. So.
Well,
I
actually,
just bring that up.
No, it's funny that you mention that, because I've told this story before, and I don't think I've told it here. The Richard Petty driving experience
Right.
was a sponsor of my radio show,
Right.
and they had a place at Disney, and then of course they had Daytona. So you could drive a Formula One race car at Disney on a flat track,
Right.
and they dress you up and you're wearing all the equipment and stuff. I felt more like an astronaut than I did driving a car. But anyway, so they let me come over and try it. And what was interesting was I didn't drive the first time, and I was sitting with a guy. And as we're going really, really fast, I learned two things. I learned that I could hold my breath for 3 minutes, and I also learned that I could pee at 190 miles an hour.
There you go.
And it was astounding. But I always tell a story about Barbara, and if she's listening, I'm going to get yelled at. But she hosted my show one time. I was playing in a golf tournament over here, and she was doing a live read for a commercial. And she said, the Richard Petty driving experience, you get to drive 600 miles an hour in a Formula One race car, meaning to say 600 horsepower.
Right.
And so I called. I was in a break, and I called, and I told her I was going to come by. And she said, why, are you here? I said, no, but I'm in Orlando. I can be in Tampa in 5 minutes at 600 miles an hour. So anyhow, I'm not a huge fan, but I do watch it. Those guys are interesting.
Yeah.
They have to be athletic, but I don't think they're athletes.
Yeah.
Are you a fan?
No.
No. Okay. Well, it was nice of you to bring it up,
Well,
considering that you don't care. But and he certainly is a
Well,
legend.
I try to follow everything. I try to, know what's going on. Can I speak intelligently about NASCAR? I cannot. There are some fundamental things in that bother me. Like the idea that there are some teams, and then there are individual drivers, and a team can block out an individual driver.
Yeah, and so that's accurate.
I think, to me, and I always love, all my rants revolve around fixing sports.
Yes, I know.
So to fix NASCAR, I think all the pit crews should be by NASCAR, and all the cars should be provided by NASCAR, so there's no cheating and everyth's the same.
Nothing but quality driving.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
that's an interesting thought.
And
they tried to do that. I mean, you think about it. They tried it. I mean, by limiting the things that can be done in the car
Right.
that you can see.
Yeah.
They do that. But I
Well-
think, boring and stroking an engine differently, and I know very little about it, but
yeah.
I do know that can improve the speed, it can improve horsepower and all that stuff. But when it comes from the performance of it, yeah, I think it's crummy when they say, Team Greg won because I was able to block
Right.
a driver and you snuck around and took the pole.
And sadly, I learned this with Dale Earnhardt, was his death actually, what I read, I'm taking this from what I read,
Sure.
so it could be inaccurate, but he was kind of blocking out another car because there was one of the teammates was ahead.
And that led to his accident?
Well, yeah, because he was blocking out another car, and they rammed into, they got into that accident.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I read.
Yeah, well,
I actually thought all of those guys were independent, drivers, and you hear like these teams have 5 or 6 cars in the.
They don't talk about it like they talk about
No.
a regular team. I'll
No.
give you that. I mean, and I always put under the impression that the pit crew was my team, and that was
Right.
the extent of
Yeah,
it.
that's
But
what I thought, too.
Yeah, I don't think that I thought too much about it. But you do hear him talk about it, and once in a while you'd hear the reference that somebody blocked someone so
Yeah.
somebody else could get there. And at first it was almost like, I mean, when I ran track as a kid, and you had rabbits.
Right.
And, so you'd take somebody that had no chance of winning,
Right.
which is kind of silly, but he would or she would go out and run,
We,
really fast for the first half.
We've
And-
got a call. I'm going to put him,
absolutely.
directly on.
Sure.
Caller, you're on the air. Can you hear me? Caller?
You mean we had a caller?
We had a caller. All right.
Well,
They're not
thanks for calling in.
Appreciate
And
it.
if you were looking for Ken or Greg, we're no longer here. So anyway, but when you're looking at the way that the NASCAR has evolved, it's becoming overly technological. You can look at things that the way the cars are built, the way that the drivers are trained, the way that the equipment is made. I would think that from a car manufacturing standpoint, every single car that's on the street would be built like a NASCAR.
Right.
For safety, for speed, for control.
Right.
One thing I didn't realize and didn't know, and these, the 2 reasons they have big banks. Do we have a caller again?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, then I'll pause.
All right.
Ken will
You're-
return after this brief caller.
You're on the air, caller.
Don't make me pause. Don't pause again on my behalf. Hey, we want 3 things. First of all, my friend, our foreign correspondent Andrea is going to be very upset you guys are dissing on the Tour de France.
I know.
She is so excited that started today. She's got like a chart with all of the racers and what they had for breakfast and everything else. So she's really into it. And so I told her the 3rd hour maybe. Let's move her up from the 4th hour to the 3rd hour.
Okay.
Okay, I can support that.
All
Did you guys know, by the way, that they do exactly with the? You probably knew this. I didn't. The Tour de France with NASCAR. I mean, you're in teams,
Yeah.
so you can have somebody crashing into people that on other teams on purpose. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, we're going to have your foreign correspondent call in next week.
She's going to be in next week. She will definitely give you a call,
All right.
Good.
and I'm looking forward to that. And secondly, have you guys got into the big fight? Everybody's talking about the Floyd Mayweather fight against some guy. I don't watch the what's it called, MMA or
Yeah.
something, where they beat up each other on the ring.
Right.
But I guess it's going to be a money making extravaganza. And I can't think of anything that's more hokum or more hokey. And but I'll bet they sell so many tickets to this thing it'll be unbelievable.
It's $54.95 on HBO.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
$54.95. Do you know? So if they do the math, they get what, 10 million viewers?
Yeah.
God Almighty!
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it could be over in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Or it may never materialize, and they may dance around and not hit each other. I mean, if they're smart businessmen, we'll say we'll dance, we don't get hurt.
And this is how we're progressing in sports. Is now we've got caged animals fighting like they had the gladiators. Next
Yeah.
thing, the only way that this could get better is if in the midst of 2 men fighting in the cage, they throw a tiger in there.
I love it. Wouldn't that be great if they did that?
I'd watch it.
Yeah, people would watch that. There's no question. By the way, while you guys are doing rants, getting back to baseball, I know there's no stats. I would love to know how many saves or how many leads were blown after the 6th inning this year. I know everybody's got their Greg talking about the 7th inning guy, the setup guy, the pre-setup guy, the setup guy, and the closer. And I think your odds of all of them having their stuff really, really starts to go down as you get deeper and deeper into the game.
I'll guarantee you that the Washington Nationals are proponents of not having anybody. They want their starters to go 9. I think every game they've lost this year has been lost after the 7th inning.
You're right. It seems that way, and I know that's happened. Not that Pittsburgh's a great team, but they've blown a ton. And they lost 5 games trying to prove that their guy was a closer, and they proved he wasn't. Now they're bringing up guys from AA that have no idea what's going on. So, but they're still on the hunt because they're in such a bad division.
And on the other hand, you have Kenley Jansen and Craig Kimball that are doing things that haven't been done in closing for a really long time.
But
Do you Kim, you say Kim, it's amazing because I get to see him a lot, and he was the dominant for the Braves, I think, for a while, and then did they try to start him? I can't remember. They did something to him, and then they let him go in free. He has got electric stuff. If he's hitting his spots, I don't know if he's hittable.
Right-handed batters are 2 for 64 going into last night.
That's what I mean. That's almost ridiculous. You'd think somebody get lucky and do better than that. That's
You're right.
How effective it is.
I mean, and he's also, but strangely enough, he hasn't caught Chapman yet. I didn't realize. I guess this is another stat that they've only recently started having. But a couple of years ago, Chapman struck out 54% of the people that he faced. And right now, Kimbrel has the highest rate for a career, but he's only at 51 point something for the year. So half the people that he's facing are not touching the ball, which is just astounding.
Yeah.
It's and like I said, but now there you got somebody like that. You've got a rare gem, but to try to force Pedro's AA to come up and be your
Bob, you're breaking up.
But where you were going with that, I agree totally. I mean, if they start trying to turn pitchers that have 7, 8, 9 inning possibilities into closers before they even have a chance, that's what they're drafting kids. I mean, I can't imagine coming out of high school or college and getting drafted and say you're going to be a closer. How do you know? My arm isn't even developed yet.
Right.
Well, I agree with that. I know. Greg told me I'm breaking up, so I want to thank you guys doing a great job. This has been fascinating. I've been. Like I said, I've been going in and out of the car, and I've been hearing you. Love the topics, love the show, and then what everybody calls in and says. So I love the show. Keep it up, guys, and I'll be listening for more great rants.
We will be infinitely more appreciative, though. I hate it when I call in to a show and they say, "Hey, nice show. I love your show." Yeah, thanks. Okay, what's up? So in this particular case, Bob, we are so grateful for that comment that I'm actually sending you money.
Oh, you know what? That worked. That worked out great for both of us.
It did. Thank you so much for calling. Take care of yourself.
Keep it going. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
That's nice.
Yes.
He has such a great radio voice.
He does.
He ought to do this. He ought to be in radio.
Well, he's another professional.
See, well, another. You're talking about you and him, right?
No, you.
Oh, come on.
Me, I'm a videographer. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I hoodwinked James somehow.
Well, see, I had a chance right there. I could have said, "Oh, thanks, Greg. No big deal." As opposed to, "Greg, that is so nice of you to say. Thank you very, very much. I'm coming to your house and I'm going to mow your lawn."
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
already did it. So.
Oh, then that's why I knew. So anyway, go back into your baseball stuff.
Hey, yeah. Well, talking about pitching, Jacob deGrom, New York Mets. I think he's
handsome woman.
I think he's 3-0. Not in his last 3 games.
Yes, he is.
He had a conversation with John Smoltz, and Smoltz told deGrom that when he was a pitcher, he threw 2 times between starts at 70%, which apparently these pitchers don't do. I thought they did.
I did too.
And so he is following that routine now, and he's 3-0, and his ERA is 1 or something.
Oh, he's pitching out of his head.
Yeah.
But
because he struggled, he was having some of the struggles, and I guess that's what precipitated the talk with John Smoltz. And,
well, the Mets pitching staff in general is having trouble.
Yeah.
And as you go to break, we can talk about the fact that these guys are working themselves into the wrong shape.
Right.
And I think that's part of it.
I think you're right. Well, and we'll touch on that more because that's what we do here. We touch on more things.
Yeah, I'm going to do that while we're at commercial.
All right. All right.
Leave it alone.
You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. We're sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And if you listen to the auction block here on WQBQ, a lot of times you can get a very good oil change from them for a little bit of money. So call in for that show. It's the same number. We'll be right back after these messages. We are back with Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, your community service radio station, and the voice of Lake County. How about that?
Absolutely. Good save.
So
So we were at the break. We were talking about
DeGrom and pitching.
yeah, and it's funny. It goes back, I think, to the whole concept of looking like an athlete as opposed to being one.
right.
Okay, I mean, when you think back to some of the better pitchers in baseball history, they didn't look like they spent a lot of time in the gym.
Right.
They looked like they spent more time, eating.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's a great way to present it, because you want, followers, you want kids, you want them to think about being in shape and all that stuff and learning the right ways to do it. But there are certain things that you can do. I mean, look at a guy like Nolan Ryan. He certainly wasn't a physical. He wasn't a machine.
Yeah, wrong guy.
Skinny guy.
No, wrong guy.
Why?
He actually had quite a impressive workout regime.
Well, but I know he did. I won't say. I didn't know that you were going to say that. But
Yeah.
I'll say that that's fine. Not that he was an out of shape guy,
Right.
but he wasn't built like he was carved from stone. I mean, some of these guys are working out and they've got six packs and they're making their arms remarkably stronger.
Yeah.
He obviously had a body that was built to pitch. Can't question that.
Right.
But I mean, his release point was the reason, from what everybody says, as to why his career was so long.
Right.
He wasn't putting as much stress on his shoulder and his elbow. But he wasn't like a guy that spent 10 hours a day in off season in the weight room, I don't think.
I'm not really sure about that, but your point is true. These guys work out all year round. I think they lift too much weights. Baseball is not a weightlifting sport.
It's not. It's a speed sport. It's
Right.
not a muscle sport.
Right. And I mean, there are some benefits of lifting weights, but like you're talking about, it's not the idea to be packing on 30 or 35 pounds of muscle. It's not football.
Guys used to build their legs. They
Yeah.
wanted because they wanted to have the
Right.
strength for 162 games.
Right.
That doesn't come from your upper body. It
Right.
comes from your lower body.
Right.
And when you look back at those guys, I mean, you look at a guy like Maury Wills. His thighs look like my waist.
Yeah.
And he stole 110, 115 bases. Ricky Henderson has gigantic thighs. I mean, you look back at pictures of
Yeah.
him when everybody was wearing those lovely fabric
Yeah.
flammable
tight
uniforms
fitting,
in the 70s. Yeah, I mean, he was remarkably built, but he was not built big from the waist up. He was solid, certainly,
Right.
and no excess weight, probably had a body fat of 1-2%.
Right.
But they didn't do it. And it's apparent now that these guys are wearing themselves out. There's no excuse for a kid. I was reading an article, an 11-year-old kid who's now pitching in the major leagues. He pitches for the Angels, if I'm not mistaken. He had Tommy John when he was 11.
Yeah.
And because he learned how to throw a breaking ball when he was 11. Right. And, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's dad living vicariously through his son.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, it goes back to the money. And I've tried, my rant could be very simple, because we started this one time when I first came on with you and Bob,
Right.
when we talked about how you coordinate and you put caps on how much people can earn based on their performance instead of these remarkably stupid contracts that these guys are getting. Speaking of which, totally unrelated, but contract related, Seth Curry got a $206 million contract yesterday, signed.
Right.
Blake Griffin signed one for $170 some odd million, 5-year contracts. I mean, come on, they're playing basketball. But so this is what happens in baseball. You could put it based on people's performance. The guy who does the best gets the most pay, and you have a limit on that. Maybe it's $8 million, $10 million. Something that's not ridiculously stupid. They're not ruining their bodies like football players are.
Yeah.
But if you look at that and you start now developing these kids, like a Todd Marinovich, whose dad had him, living on professional football from the time he was old enough to walk.
Right.
And it turned out to be a fruitcake, and I don't know if he killed somebody or if he just was a gambling addict, but he ended up being nothing after 2 years with the Raiders. Right. But that's the whole idea, is that these guys aren't the kind of athletes that they need to be for their sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love the fact that DeGrom's pitching well. I have him on 3 fantasy teams, but he needs a haircut.
But it's it is interesting because he's kind of John Smoltz. I'm going to call him old school.
Yeah, I know. Real, that's scary.
But the problem is these guys are pitching all year round. Maybe I don't know the deal in Major League Baseball what they do in the off season, but coming up through the ranks, these guys, kids and everything, play baseball on these travel teams all year round.
Yep.
You know, and I think your body breaks down.
It's not. I mean, first of all, at that age, it's not even developed enough, so you have the strength to be able to pull that off.
Right.
So kids that do that, I think their parents are really ruining
Right.
a possibility for a career for them in some
Yeah.
regard. But
Because I played a lot of sports. My favorite sport was hockey. I played hockey a lot. I did play it all year round.
yep,
But in the off season, you know, I played, you know, pickup games and men's leagues and stuff like that when I was a kid.
yep.
But I also was playing baseball, lacrosse, a little bit of football. You know, I was playing other sports. You know, so that off season, I was still playing hockey, but I was playing other sports as well.
The few pro ball players that I know, pitchers in particular, they take a month or two off after, if they were in the World Series, you know, their season doesn't end until the end of October, early November now.
Right.
They'll take off until like the middle of December,
Right.
which is only a month, maybe 6 weeks, because they're back in spring training. They're early. They're mid-February.
Yeah.
So they don't have a lot of time to recover. And if it were me, you know, I would want to find out through whatever level of training is required is how do I not stress out my elbow
Right.
and my shoulder when I'm in the off season, in lieu of trying to build it up, knowing full well that I am going to ruin
Right.
my shoulder and or my elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, over the years I've developed a little bit of bursitis. Actually, the doctor called it golfer's elbow. Which is weird. I didn't think, because I don't use my elbows very much in golf,
Right.
or at least I don't think I'm supposed to be. And so, you know, every once in a while I'll get a steroid shot, and it really does help. It's remarkable how they do help.
Right.
But I look at the way some of these guys throw. I mean, you look at a guy like Ellsbury, got a $200 million contract with the Yankees. He can't throw the ball from mid center field to second base in the air. And how did that happen? What happened to his arm?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that it's part of that is just the way that these kids are trained now and the way that they're put through their paces as children. And so for you to say that about Smoltz, who I'm a huge fan of, by
Yeah.
the way, and I think he's a really solid analyst as well.
Right.
I think I didn't know that he had gotten that advice from him, and I think that's a great. You know, if you look at between Maddox and Smoltz, those were two of the best pitchers that have been in baseball for
Yeah.
longevity and continued quality performance.
Got to throw Glavine in there as well.
And absolutely, and now you know you don't hear them complaining about their arms and their shoulders, and they threw a lot of innings.
Yep.
So yeah, that's cool. It would be interesting to do sometime on the show, and actually do some preparation on it and kind of isolate each position, and see what kind of exercises would most benefit a first baseman versus a shortstop, or a catcher versus a second baseman. I bet we'd see some interesting workout regimes that might change the way that if we could get it to anybody, might change the way that they look about how they stay in shape and build on their performances.
Well, we had the coach of the the coach of the Leesburg Lightning in here, and he actually
Is that baseball?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's we should go to a game, by the way.
High school baseball?
No, it's a college. It's a college summer league.
Oh.
In Leesburg. They travel around
Sure.
the area, but their home base, the Leesburg Lightning.
Oh,
is
sorry,
in
I didn't know that. I'd
Yeah.
do that. I think that'd be great.
It's free.
Sure.
It's right
Way
here
better.
in Venetian Gardens, and so it's a lot of fun.
That goes back to the point about Carlin's point. We go to Venetian Gardens to play baseball, and you go to a stadium to play football.
By the way, it's a wood bat league.
Oh, I like that too.
Yep.
I hate metal bats.
Yeah.
That's softball.
Yeah, me too. But having said that, I digress a bit. But he was talking about that they work out too much in the gym, and he brought up that very point of, and he's a young guy too. He brought up the point that they're working out to be like bodybuilders, so that they look exactly what you said, to look like an athlete. And it's not. He's kind of against that as well. And
Well,
he's probably 30.
Well, he's the old guy.
Yeah.
It's funny, but if you watched any, now I was watching on the U.S. Open a couple of weeks ago, Glenn Day, Rory McIlroy,
Right.
those guys are being sponsored. I think both of them are sponsored by Under Armour, and the shirts that they wear
Right.
are literally wear one, peel it off,
Right.
wear another, peel it off. And those guys, I bet their body fat seriously is under 5%, and they're just ripped. And right now, neither one of them can get out of their own way on the golf course.
Right.
And I'm wondering how much impact does that have on it.
Right.
So I think it would be an interesting thing to look down. If some physiotherapist was out there looking for a way to make a splash, do some research and find out, how come the athletes of olden days, not contact, you can't talk about old football players
Right.
or even old hockey players probably, but what they did to extend the length of their career. And I bet you'd find some interesting information there, and I bet you'd see some people start to look at it and go, I'd prefer to play longer, not shorter, and get a chance that I'm going to walk away from the sport hurt.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be something that I would be interested in seeing that research.
Well, I'm a big fan of Lou Gehrig, and one of the things that they talk about with Lou Gehrig was the size of his legs. And
Really, I didn't know that.
Yep. And when you see
Gary Cooper didn't have that big of legs.
no, but if
He didn't know how to play baseball. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I
He
know.
did not know how to play a
Right.
lick.
and which actually surprised me, being an American growing, that
Yeah.
you don't know how to play baseball.
It was huge back then. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody loved baseball then.
Right.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
He was also a right-handed.
Right.
Lou Gehrig was
Yep.
left. The
Thank you for the movie moment.
Yes. The thing that about Lou Gehrig was huge thighs, big rear end, that low center of gravity. Now, the other guy, Babe Ruth, was, although when you see him younger, the size of his legs, tremendous.
Mickey Mantle
Yeah.
had huge legs.
Right.
He ran like a deer.
Yeah.
I just think that they're exercising the wrong things.
Right.
They're not thinking about their game. They're
Right.
thinking about what they look like, and I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
And for any of the old Saturday Night Live fans, it's as Fernando would say, it's better to look good than to feel good.
You look marvelous.
Looking marvelous. So anyway, so that's pretty cool. Do we have more baseball?
Well, last night the Yankees played the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I kind of expected that to be a blowout for the Astros. The Yankees didn't get out of Chicago until almost 3:30 in the morning because their game started 2.5 hours late.
Right.
The night before, a really bad thing happened to a real potential Yankee star, a rookie first game.
Yeah.
So they didn't get into Houston until dawn.
Right.
And literally got 2-3 hours sleep. I was surprised because McCullers has been pitching great for Houston.
Well, the Yankees won 13-4.
Oh, I stopped. The Red Sox game ended when it was 10-4, so that's interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, not that anybody cares about breaking down the Yankee Astro game, but I just thought I always enjoy this when they bring in a position player to pitch.
Oh, did they? Who
Yeah.
was it?
Norachika Aoki.
Really?
Who is their left fielder.
Yep.
And he.
How do you do?
He did poorly, but actually he didn't do that bad because he only gave up 3 runs, but he gave up 1 hit, 2 walks, and gave up the 3 runs. So in that 1 inning, his ERA was 27.
Yeah, that's not good. It's funny you mention that because the kid who caught for the Twins the night before last against the Red Sox, son of a gun, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he's kind of like the designated pitcher for the Twins.
Right.
And he's proud of it. He actually has, he's done okay. They're excited when he goes in. The fans obviously eat it
Yeah.
up when he's at Target Field. But most importantly, he's not bad. He throws he's got an 87, 88 mile an hour
Right.
fastball. He's got a little breaking ball.
Aoki was throwing about 75 miles an hour.
Ah, that's lovely.
But I'm sorry. I don't
No,
know if
no,
you finished
you're
your
good.
thought.
No,
but
that's it.
you'd asked me if Aaron Judge hit a home run last
I
night.
did.
And he did not. But he hit a shot off of Aoki that it didn't hit the ceiling of what, it's not Tropic, it's another orange juice, not Tropicana, it's another Minute Maid.
Minute Maid Field.
But the center fielder had to wait like 5 minutes for this thing to come down.
Really?
He just missed. I mean, if he got any fraction of inch lower on that ball, it would have probably bounced off the back wall of that stadium because it was a tremendous pop up, and the guy you just saw the center fielder just standing there like waiting.
Well, for anybody that hasn't seen this kid play, you got to watch. Holding the bat in his hand, he doesn't use a heavy bat.
No.
He wants the speed, but a bat looks like it's a toothpick in
Yeah.
his hands. It's funny you mentioned 70 miles an hour for an outfielder pitching. both Sanchez and the first reliever, whose name is avoiding me from last night for Toronto,
Yeah.
75% of their pitches were changeups.
Right.
75, 78, 73, 77. And the funny thing was they both threw them pretty well, but the Red Sox took 14 walks last night.
Wow.
And they left, this is a number that any baseball fan is going to go, what? If they don't know. They left 17 men on base. Mitch Moreland came up to bat 4 times with the bases loaded.
Wow.
And I do not like this 4 number.
Oh, me either.
I want the ball thrown.
Yep.
I want the chance that the
Yep.
catcher's going to throw it or throw it over
Right.
the guy's head coming back, or the pitcher's going to misthrow
Yep.
it. The last couple of years, you've seen people hit a close pitch that's coming in at 60 miles an hour and knock the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
I like that aspect.
Yep.
I don't like this throw up a 4 and
Nope.
you go. I didn't even know. I ran to the wall. I don't know. I ran out to get a Coke or something. I came back and the bases were loaded, and they literally had just 4-balled both guys.
Yep. And you know what's funny is because this is for the speed of the game or
Yeah.
pace of the game, but of course, so they knocked out that 2 seconds,
2 seconds.
but they added another 30 seconds of commercials.
Of course. Yeah.
So-
It's ridiculous. It's remarkable how they capitalize on it to waste time.
Okay, I'm going to digress a bit. I listen to a lot of radio, and
That's a good plan considering you're on it.
What's really bothersome to me is the amount of commercials now on these national programs. You know, whether you listen to Rush Limbaugh or ESPN, which I don't really listen to a lot anymore because I don't really like left-wing politics.
In sports.
Right. But it's amazing to me how many commercials that they have.
Well,
and now not only the regular commercials, but they're doing the live reads as well.
is this your rant?
Yeah.
Okay, go more. Go deeper.
Well, it becomes, for me, I really stop listening to that. What is the amount of time that they got to realize that people are being turned off? I'm being turned off.
Well, I listen to Sirius Radio.
Right.
Okay, and I could have 400 hours worth of political rants,
Right.
but I won't. But between I listen to Fox and CNN and MSNBC,
Right.
and I usually on my way to and from work, and the thing that stinks is they all go to break at the same time.
Right.
Okay, so there's the first challenge. If somebody else was smarter, and Fox is a little bit does it, they take a break that's a little off it.
Right.
So you kind of catch them in the middle. You know who's going to come back first and all that.
Yeah.
But they're getting way too many. They're way too much money to buy.
Right.
And I don't think people care.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said for advertising, but too much of it.
Advertise the right stuff
Yeah.
at the right time for the right price.
Right.
And you get people to buy it.
Right. All right. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410. I turned off your microphone.
Yeah,
but
I know
But
that.
now I turned it back on.
Okay, no, I was just sitting here talking to nobody.
Sorry about that. But we're sponsored by Bill Bryan Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And we will be right back with the last segment after these messages. We are back with Red Zone Radio Sports here in WQBQ 1410, voice of Lake County.
And it's the last segment. This has been a great hour and 45 minutes so far,
It
Greg. Thank you
has.
so much for the invite.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So,
I came across something just quickly. Unless do you have something major sports to talk about?
nope.
This was funny because this weekend, it's a big cookout weekend and people going to see fireworks and all that other fun stuff. And I read the headline of the article is what caught me. It was called Food for Thought, which I thought was funny. Are hot dogs healthier without added nitrates?
Right.
That's a question that you
Yeah.
would need to ask. And Oscar Mayer is touting a new hot dog recipe that uses a nitrate that's derived from celery, and instead of artificial sodium nitrate. And the reason the sodium nitrate is used is to keep the pinkish color. So now I'm starting to wonder what color would a hot dog be if it didn't have it in there?
Actually, gray.
That would certainly make it so I would never eat another one. But it was interesting because now the combination of the new things that they're looking at create carcinogens that give cancer to animals.
Right.
So now the nitrates are bad for you, but whatever they're putting in there might not be as bad as the nitrates, but it's still going to kill you. So everybody this weekend have themselves a handful of hot dogs.
Well, here's the problem with a lot of these things. I think, and I guess we're going to get off sports, which is fine because hot dogs to me is part of sports.
It is.
The age, longevity is going up, cancer rates going down, and so what is it? People are eating more than they ever have in the United States anyway.
Yeah, we're an overweight country, so that must have something to do with our
Right.
life expectancy going up. Certainly not by experts.
Right. So I think a lot of this comes from people who think if you eat the right combination of broccoli and carrots, you'll live forever. And, there's an old adage, there's more to living than life. And, you hear like baseball players and football players, or especially football players, when they get out of football and they have all these injuries, a lot of them say, you know what, I still would have played.
Right.
Because I'm in the same camp as well. I mean, I never played professionally, but I probably would have been all right with some knee replacements or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure. I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I took a slap shot off my knee when I was a kid, and pads were pretty bad. So I actually still have a kind of a plastic kneecap.
Right.
And other than being a decent weatherman, I can tell you when it's going to rain several days in advance. It's never been a real issue. But I think about, it's funny you say that, because the older I get, oh God, this is why we want to end the show on age. Right. The older I get, the more I think about what I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
So the 2 or 3 things that I can remember, I don't think I would have changed much,
Right.
and there were certainly times when I felt like I was being ridden hard and left out wet. And yet, as I get older, I think those things are what made my character. They made me the person who's willing to try stuff. They
Right.
made me the person who still wants to learn at this age.
Right.
I think it gave me a better opportunity to help people. And when you think about that in sports now, that's why guys that maybe weren't the best players make better coaches, because they had different reasons to try and be better.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I mean, you look like a guy like Terry Francona, had a couple good years, great coach. You look at a guy like Mike Scioscia, good catcher, great coach.
Right.
And you even look at Girardi, wasn't even a great player, really, been a great coach.
Yeah.
And I think those guys have a different perspective on life, and that perspective on life is a whole hell of a lot easier to impact a young player who doesn't know where his life is supposed to go yet.
Yeah.
And then if you apply that to regular sports, I think it's the same thing. Look at a guy like Isaiah Thomas, great player, crappy coach.
Right. I can't remember the guy's name. A football player. He's 78 years old. He's having a lot of memory problems and stuff. So he's saying, I would have never have played football if I knew this was happening. And the life expectancy for a white male in the United States is 77.6 years or something. So he's 78, and so he's already had the run of the average.
Right.
But now he's blaming this condition on football, and that's what I think is ridiculous. And I'm sorry he's going through this.
Sure.
But my father never played professional sports. He had Alzheimer's, and he got it when he was 80 and then passed away when he was 83 from it. But
Still a good life.
yeah. And, so you're going to blame your condition on football, and that's what I get annoyed at. And I know, yes, it's concussions and stuff, and I know it has an impact on your life and so forth. But the other thing that a lot of those guys did too, they abused drugs,
Yep.
steroids, and I think it may not be the one thing, but it's probably all of the things mixed together.
Well, that's the problem. I
that-
think they try to isolate one
Yeah,
or two things that made things go the wrong way for them, and I think you're right. I think it's a multitude of things,
Right.
and yet for some, It's not so bad. I mean, I
Right.
had a guy that I used to live next door to. He drank a fifth of scotch a day, smoked a pack and a half of cigarettes, and any drugs he could get his hands on. And the doctor said that he was a miracle,
Right.
that he wasn't dead.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know how he is now. I mean, he looked like he was 60 when he was 30, but he was still healthy.
Right.
And or at least he appeared to be healthy. And so I don't know that. And I don't. People hate change. So when you think about change, and you can apply it all to sports. If somebody came in tomorrow and told all the professional athletes that their careers would extend, their health would be fine, and all they had to do was stop doing anything that anybody construes as bad for
Right.
them. You know how many people would do it? None.
Yeah.
So it goes to your point about life is there's more to it than just living it.
Right.
And that, I think that's the important part. And so that's why I like baseball of all the professional sports, because you can be in it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you can play for a long time. I mean, guys like Tom Brady are obviously an anomaly, and,
Right.
and guys like George Blanda, who played till he's 44. And I saw Ichiro make a catch last night that was remarkable, and he's 44 playing baseball.
Right.
Looks like he could play for another 10 years. So having that extended...
I don't think so. I think his batting average is telling you.
Oh yeah, he's down. Yeah, he's a skinny guy and he can't hit his weight.
Yeah.
But he still has it in him.
Yeah.
And but the point is, everybody's different. Nothing applies to everyone.
Right,
And I
exactly.
think that's the way that you should look at it as an athlete. What works for you in the weight room is not necessarily going to work for me.
Right.
Personal trainers don't know what my body is
Right.
telling me inside.
Yep.
And that has something to do with how your performance goes. And you think back to some of the athletes that you've seen over the years. Chuck, what was his name? Kapler used to play for the Red Sox.
Okay.
He looked like an Adonis.
Right.
He was muscles on muscles. He couldn't hit. I mean, if he didn't hit it out of the ballpark, he didn't put his bat on the ball.
Yeah.
And I just think that's what's permeating sports in general, and that makes it real hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get a chance to really touch much on the NBA. But yesterday the free agent season started,
Right.
And my rant today was going to be about Danny Ainge, and we're accruing the Celtics are accruing all of these draft picks, remarkable series of draft picks based on stupid trades that other teams made.
Yes.
Brooklyn being one, who
Yeah.
will be supplying the Celtics with their first round pick, I think, until like the year 30, and yet now they're not any good, because everybody's starting to realize the value of a draft pick doesn't show up right away.
Right.
So the value of a draft pick is what the 76ers are doing. They're amassing first and second, first top 5 players with crappy teams. I don't like the fact that they tanked to do it, but they're building a team for the future.
Yeah.
Whereas the Celtics have one star who's very fragile in Isaiah Thomas, and they've got one other star named Al Horford who's starting to face the backside of his career, and they're trying to build a championship team with that by accumulating all of these draft picks that nobody wants. They
Yeah.
couldn't get Paul George. They offered them 3 first-round picks and a starting player, and they traded. Indiana got rid of him to Oklahoma for one really good player and a marginal player at best.
Right.
And that's all it took to get him, even though they think that he's probably going to head to L.A. at the end of next year.
Yeah.
So at any rate, there was no synergy in changing of topics there. But my point was that this, touching on the NBA, that with the free agent season open, it's now true that every major sport is a 12-month sport.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard them talking about hockey this time of the year, and yet free agency in hockey was just a couple weeks ago, so players are changing teams,
Yeah.
contracts are getting negotiated, all that. NBA, same thing, stupid money going to players to play a kid's game, and we're halfway through the baseball season.
Well, that's, I guess, the point we're going to disagree on, because how much money they make doesn't bother me.
But are you one of those people, though, that says if they're stupid enough to pay?
Yep.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah, I'm not going to turn down money.
No, I understand that, but what if it was to the detriment of the game? And this is the point I'm making.
Well, is it?
Somebody I was listening to the NBA station on my way up here, and this guy, whomever he was talking about to take a family of 4 or 4 people, wife,
Right.
father, and 2 kids, to an NBA game and not sit in the nosebleed seats is $1,000.
Right.
Okay, for 48 minutes of sports.
Right.
And
That's
that
why
doesn't even talk about food.
Right.
The only reason it's that way is because of the
It's
salaries that the people
it's another
pay.
grand.
But it's $1,000. I
Right.
mean, so if you're gonna buy 40, if you're gonna
Well,
be a season ticket holder, you're talking about $40,000.
It goes. I'm going to go back to Adam Smith, and it's supply and demand. I mean, there are obviously people out there willing to pay $1,000, and they can fill up those arenas, so they do it.
Yeah, but they're not the people that are buying the products that these guys are promoting. They're not buying the Nike sneakers. They're not buying the Michael Jordans. They're not buying, the Tom Brady shirts at the football stadium. Those are the blue-collar people, and the people that go because they love the game and they want to be with their family and all that.
My job in life is not really to correct how other people buy or don't buy jerseys.
Oh, I agree, and it's not mine either.
Because quite frankly, and I've gone to a lot of different games in my life. You know what? Now with HGTV, and 45-inch screens, I kind of like.
Yeah,
in my living room.
the live experience is certainly not what it used to be when
Right.
you can watch it the way that you can watch it
Right.
now. I don't disagree with that, and I certainly, with the odd exception, baseball being one of them, because it's just not as frenetic when you're there.
Right.
But I still love going to baseball games.
Yeah,
For me,
and I
it's
do too.
calming.
Yeah, yeah.
But going to a football game, I feel like I might as well be playing. I'm wound up tight.
Yeah,
Basketball,
the
hockey,
problem
same
with
way.
football with me too is, which I never enjoyed going to, is because it's so darn cold when I'm from the north, and it was
Especially
like,
because
you're
it's
at-
sitting on top of an ice rink.
You're at Shea Stadium, and it's where the Jets used to play.
No, they
You-
didn't. They just used to show up.
Yeah, true. hey, they played there in '69.
Yeah,
Which is
okay.
the last time they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's also the
So-
year of the fabulous Mets.
That's right. But it's just misery, and I always think about that as shock that they can fill those stadiums.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that
it's
goes to show
4
the
degrees out.
importance of football. The old Schaefer Stadium, before Kraft bought it, I would go, and we would be dressed like the Abominable Snowman,
Yeah.
and they had metal seats. They were metal bench seats, no backs, nothing. And you couldn't get another person in there with a crowbar.
Right.
So I agree, the dedication to the sport, but those aren't the people. I mean, those are the people that are being affected by these ridiculous prices,
Right.
and yet you'll still find people to go.
Right.
I guess it almost makes me sound communist, but I like the sharing aspect of it. I want to be able to have my neighbor who might not have a job
Yeah.
right now to be able to take his kids to
Right.
the ball game.
Right.
I want to be able to get everybody's level of involvement, because I think it's good for your head.
Yeah.
I think you get a spirit of it. You get
I agree on those things. I do, and but there are other ways around that. If you can't afford and you want the baseball experience, get your kids in Little League.
I agree.
Get them off of video games.
No question. If I had
get out
children,
there and-
I wouldn't act like one. No, if I had children, there would be limited amount of time that they would be absolutely, unequivocally outside without
Right.
any electronic assistance,
Right.
Unless it was me and a cattle prod making them go out there, because there's no way that these kids are going to become
Yeah.
stuck inside and game heads. I don't want that to deter from them wanting to be in the tech industry
Right.
or learn about that sort of stuff. But there's nothing better. There
Right.
is nothing better than being outside and running around and having a good time with your
I'll
friends.
circle back to where we started this very program.
That's
today.
what you do so well.
And you were talking about technology and stuff, and to me, what's happening in sports, and I coined this new phrase. It's going to be in the dictionary soon. The video gamization of sports,
Ooh, I like that.
and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see replays. I don't want to see a strike zone done with computers and technology.
No, I think that would really bother me if they
And,
resorted to that.
And I think the people that think that that's the route
It should
sport
go?
should go, I think are short-sighted.
I would not disagree with any part of what you said. It has to be remaining human.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, it's not worth watching as a human.
Right.
And I mean, I take it that way with
And-
any level of technology.
And I'm not a Red Sox fan, but
I know you're not.
But I will tell you this: I love the scoreboard there.
Did you the other night they went in there? I think it was Thursday night. They were on ESPN, and they took everybody back there. I've never been in there. I wish I had, and it is so cool. And they actually showed a guy in between innings changing numbers
Yeah.
manually.
Right.
And people who don't don't follow sports too much. That's about as old school as you're going to get when it comes to sports. So yeah, the
And see,
history.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. And I
That's
thought I
what
was
gives it
going to
the
hate.
charm of the game.
I thought I was going to hate the fact that they put seats on top of the Green Monster.
Right.
But that was a pretty cool innovation.
Yeah.
And when we go back there, I'm going to try and hook up
Right.
and get us a couple seats up there. Hey, listen, thank you very, very much for having me today.
It's a great pleasure, and you need to come back. Had a great time.
I did too.
Me too, and I appreciate you coming out and giving all your opinion on sports and stuff.
Yeah, good, bad, or the ugly.
Yeah.
Thank you very
You're
much. Have a
welcome.
great, great, great holiday. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
I meant. See ya.
All right. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports. We're sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. Stay tuned for Ralph and River Jordan and Friends. Nice gospel music on your Saturday afternoon. He is currently in the house, so Ralph is in the house, and we hope to see you next week here on WQBQ 1410 Red Zone Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody.